Top news channels are not covering the organized crime underlying the mass surveillance. Today, we will be exposing mobsters who go undercover to become police investigators. The reason you haven't heard about this is because they're killing the witnesses. Corrupt cops are killing the witnesses.
So, today we're going to show you the corrupt police investigation behind the surveillance cameras on the payroll of both the police and the mobsters. Shocker.
Hello everyone, I'm Ferris Broxton. I'm the unheard eyewitness turned independent investigator after my son was abducted by corrupt police.
I'm Josiah Royce, constitutional advocate and logicologist. Today we're going to show you the hidden evidence behind, let's see, what we got? We're going to be looking over, we have hidden evidence leaked from internal investigation of organized crime in the top levels of law enforcement.
You're also going to see new evidence from my undercover investigations, where I sting the top echelon of organized crime in the top government positions in Georgia. We're going to show you how the Freemasons, who are running organized crime, are operating. Then I'm going to show you that the reason you haven't seen accountability is because the Mafia is still running your government. We have the witnesses that have been killed. We have them right here in Minot, North Dakota. We have them on the other side of the pond. And we have corrupt cops conspiring to murder eyewitnesses in Georgia, right where the flock surveillance is protected and abused by corrupt cops. In Georgia, I'm going to expose a mafia kingpin in law enforcement controlling the people behind the cameras. The officials are complaining about him and trying to get him out from under his control. I busted him. I busted the investigator Faynette Spalding, Sheriff Judd Smith, Chief Superior Court Judge Nick Prim, and District Attorney Brad Smith. The last DA, Tim Madison, he's already in prison. Doc Holliday is one of their legacy protected mobsters. Another one of their criminals.
Doc Holliday, I think, died a long time ago.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
1800s.
Yep, he was a Freemason.
Okay.
So Doc, this is.
Just making sure everyone knows that's not current news.
Yeah. No. Well, I'm just giving. What I'm saying is that same family.
Oh wow.
They got a mobster. Doc Holliday's name was John Holliday.
This much I did not know.
Well,
I knew all this
most
stuff.
Most of this stuff most people don't know.
Yeah.
Most people don't understand how organized and protected organized crime is. There's two protected mobsters, big time kingpin dope pushers named John Holliday. After the Doc Holliday, with the Holliday family. The thing is, the Holliday family is protected. They're aligned, and they're aligned with the McWhorter family and the judges over that circuit.
Oh.
Yeah. So when they do go down, they're protected. I lived with these guys. Nice. I lived, yeah. Yep, we'll get it. That's one of the stories. Guys, we are going to show you a whole bunch of amazing stories about controlled, organized crime. We're not going to run down all those rabbit holes. Those are going to be for later episodes. But that's one of them, yeah. No, I know. I lived with John Holliday, who's dead now, and Q Holliday, who I believe has been locked up. This is the long-term protected Holliday. There's a whole bunch of these guys in this county, and we're gonna get into the hardcore mobsters.
Well, even a minute ago when you mentioned, what did you say, the Attorney General that's in prison now?
District Attorney.
Tim
sorry. Madison. Yeah.
Right. Anybody actually check on that and know if he's actually in prison? I'm just, by my nature, I just question everything. So when you say they're protected and this guy's in prison now, it's like he's probably maybe not even in prison.
If you do what they tried to do with me, man, I mean, I can't get into all this stuff, but we're gonna give you the Hitman today. Okay, the Dixie Mafia Hitman that kills 56 people. They let him out of jail.
Yeah.
They literally, while he's supposed to be on death row in maximum security, they give him a cushy stay in prison. We're going to get into that later. They let him out. They let him go on vacation. And we've got We can tell you where to find the videos. They're online. This is not a joke. This is real stuff. All right. So there are allied families of the Freemason mobsters. I'm going to show you these families today. They are Sally Quillian Yates' family. Sally Quillian Yates is the U.S. attorney that conspired to overthrow our country and signed the FISA warrant against Trump. Before we get into showing you the Mafia in Georgia, let's start with Great Britain, because they're a step ahead of this. What you're going to see is that everything that is happening here in the United States has already happened in Great Britain. The Mafia, run by the same Masonic family, has been exposed. We have the eyewitnesses, police investigators, the Scotland Yard internal police reports that were never supposed to see the light of day. Last week, we left off with a police investigator who reported his boss was involved in bank robbery. Daniel Morgan was murdered with an axe to the head. Daniel Morgan's brother partnered up with an undercover police investigator to investigate the cops that murdered Daniel Morgan. That investigator tells about his experience as an undercover cop investigating organized crime. He runs into another undercover agent who is a mobster that works for the crime boss that they're supposed to be investigating. That mobster's job is to identify the good undercover investigator so that the crime boss can kill him. Watch clip 1.
But then 12 months later, when Colin Gunn was actually brought down, it turned out that this cop I'd taken exception to, a guy called Charlie Fletcher, was an employee of Colin Gunn. As I say, he was an employee, but he was paid to join the police. And he was paid £2,000 a month on top of his police wages, plus bonuses for good information. He'd been in the police for 7 years by the time he was caught. When he was introduced to me, he knew I was undercover. And he was very, very close to finding out exactly what I was up to. Now, at the start of that operation involving that corrupt police officer, Colin Gunn was letting everybody on the streets know that if he ever caught an undercover police officer, he would be snatched off the street and tortured to death.
That's just one guy that caught him.
Yeah.
That's one example of the Mafia running the top law enforcement. I have multiple witnesses in multiple countries, including doctors, professors, criminologists, investigators, and others who talk about how the Freemasons are running organized crime in their governments at the highest levels. Still.
And in this case, getting paid with your tax dollars to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you guys getting much more than double income. That's
a real serious problem. Still, I think the best witness is the criminals themselves. When the internal investigation of a corrupt police force is leaked, and we get to see that they know the country is run by the Freemason Mafia, our country has been overthrown by these people. But we haven't figured it out yet. So we're going to go Scotland Yard first, because they conduct an internal investigation, and it's called Operation, get this, Russell. The findings of Operation Russell have never been released to the public. Operation Russell was an investigation into corruption at the top levels of law enforcement. Now, stuff that little fact in the back of your cranium. The internal investigation was named Operation Russell, and the results never released. Excuse me. After Operation Russell, Scotland Yard conducted another investigation into corruption at the top levels of law enforcement. This was called Operation Tiberius. The name itself is enough to make someone's skin crawl. Tiberius was a Roman emperor who was known for disgusting abuses of power, as bad as anything you can imagine. The Russell family was known for leading the slave trade across the world, for pushing drugs into China, for importing the slaves into the American colonies. But Tiberius was a pervert at the top of government, whose abuses of power were as twisted as anything that you can find in world history. Graphic 1, please. This is the encyclopedia reference to Operation Tiberius. Will you read that for us, Josiah?
Yeah. So, again, we did not come up with this. Operation Tiberius was the 2002 London Metropolitan Police investigation leaked to The Independent in 2014. It found that criminal organizations had used Freemasonry connections, their words, not ours, to recruit corrupt police officers. The Metropolitan Police acknowledged that it was born of other investigations, but it described it as a new strategic approach to corruption rather than a single operation.
So the Freemasons had a strategic approach to controlling organized crime. And that approach was recruiting corrupt officers. Do you want to live a life of crime and get paid double and get a portion when we orchestrate the bank robberies? This is who's behind the cameras. This is the investigators. Last week we had guys on saying we tested them. When we had a new recruit, the top law enforcement tested people to make sure that they weren't going to object.
And which cameras are you referring to?
The mass surveillance cameras.
Oh,
That's just the ones that the police have access to, but the citizens don't.
Yes.
These were the people, still are the people behind it. I'm going to show you Mafia today, kingpins in Mafia in the United States that are behind these cameras. When you see how long, I'm talking about a 50-year vet that's been over the police department for 50 years that protected the Dixie Mafia. When this guy gets out of jail, they let him go on vacation. The deadliest man in Georgia, Billy Sunday Bird. They repeatedly let him go on a vacation when he should be in 24-hour lockdown like all the other death row inmates. They let him off death row. Let him go into lower security, have a lot of comforts. They let him go to a local hometown jail where his family's allowed to come in and visit him. And they let him go on vacation, leave the jail. Go out to church with no shackles on, no orange jumpsuit.
That says a lot about that church, too, I think.
It says a lot about the whole corrupt system, but we're going to expose some of the people behind it because some of them are still in power. It's really, really disturbing.
Well, and these are just the ones that we know about.
Exactly.
Across all 50 states, do you think this isn't going on anywhere else?
Exactly. This was all overseen by the person that signed the FISA warrant against Trump, Sally Quillian Yates. This is her family, her lineage, the Dixie Mafia. You're going to be shocked when you see this. So when we get back to Georgia, to my case, you're going to see that there was a corrupt cop named Robert Yates who was promoted faster than any other cop. While they held me as a hostage, he was placed over me and controlled my case, the case that I stung. He is at the top of investigations in Jackson County, Georgia today, the last time I checked. At one point, I was convinced that investigator Yates was Sally Yates' son. The county commissioner at that time was Bruce Yates, who had a working relationship with my mother-in-law. Robert Yates is without a doubt one of the criminals I caught running organized crime in the U.S. as an investigator. Exactly what we're finding happened in Operation Tiberius. I was held as a hostage and repeatedly attacked under Robert Yates. Watch. While he's in the guard tower, I'm being attacked. Men coming in my room and attacking me because I would not cooperate with their crime ring. Now, I'm not going to go into all those attacks right now. That's going to be stories for later days. Let's just say it didn't work out for him. Now, we're going to play the introduction to the documentary Operation Tiberius. I'll include a link to it in the comment section on this video. What they're going to explain right out of the gate is that organized criminals and the Freemasons are getting into the police force in order to run organized crime in the police force.
Not an opinion. Documented.
They're controlling who gets to get behind the cameras. The Freemasons are. So when you find these people that are sitting there going, hey, what's wrong with this? Ask them right out of the gate. Are you a Freemason? Take note of them. Because if they don't seem to make sense and understand what's really going on, send them to this website. It's organized crime behind this. This documentary is going to explain how corrupt cops in charge of surveillance run and protect organized crime. It's going to explain exactly how the criminals in our FBI have been able to obstruct the investigations into the FISA warrants and election fraud in 2016 and 2020. Presidential election fraud. Trying to control your government. That's who's behind this. I also want you to notice that all the surveillance that was pushed onto the citizens was done so in the claim that it was an attempt to control international terrorism. You're going to see the surveillance was used by criminals to run organized crime to prey on citizens, not protect them. Clip 2, please.
London, 2002. Britain was on edge, its attention fixed on the global war on terror and the threat of attacks on home soil. But inside the walls of Scotland Yard, another kind of war was unfolding. It wasn't against foreign enemies or shadowy extremists. It was against corruption within the very institution sworn to protect the public. A secret report, codenamed Operation Tiberius, painted a chilling picture. Organized crime groups weren't just bribing officers for favors. They were embedding themselves deep inside the Metropolitan Police. The report warned that criminal networks had successfully recruited serving detectives, manipulated court cases, and even sabotaged murder inquiries. How do you fight crime when the police themselves are part of it?
That man just said that another kind of war was unfolding. What we have in the United States is a war against the citizens of America by a conspiring criminal organization. Now, I want to pause right here to acknowledge the comment of the week. Graphic 2, please. This was a statement that Nicole Neb Egberg posted. I hope I said your name right. The winners of wars write history. They also control the media and social narratives. Before, during, and after such wars, there is a war being waged by the secret society against the citizens of our country. They are not only controlling police forces, they're controlling the media to a large degree. You're going to meet some big-name reporters that are scared to give you the story that we're giving you today because they've witnessed the murders of the Dixie Mafia. The man that wrote the book. The book's called A Conspiracy of Silence, and it's about the Dixie Mafia, Sally Quillian Yates' family, murdering the witnesses.
Yeah, that doesn't come as a surprise to me at all because, logically speaking, anytime that there is a position of power, there's going to be someone trying to seize that power. The same applies in free market capitalism, just private businesses and stuff. It's like you want to seize the market that has appeal, something that's trending. And when it comes to government, it's like when people seem to doubt this, there's logically no reason to doubt that when there's a sense of power, like the police,
somebody's going to want to get power.
They want to get that power. And for anyone to think that it's incorruptible is ridiculous.
And when they think they're protected, when they think that they can go out and shoot somebody, like we got right here. We got here right here in Minot. Federal agent going and shooting somebody, and then the prosecutors trying to let them off. There's a woman that's got holes in her. You can go watch it. It's Beck News. We'll get into that in a minute.
Well, statistically speaking, I mean, if you're in the business and you're in the crime industry, what's the best chance that you're not going to get arrested for murder and stuff? It's if you do it under the color of
law.
Yeah.
Protected by the police. That's what we're seeing here. And they're literally structuring it that. But the citizens have to wake up and realize what the problem is. My case, my testimony, the biggest investigation in the country, if I'm brought forward in that, and all the evidence I've produced on this website is heard, that should go a real long way to getting us back on the right track and holding some people accountable. So I hope you guys will help me be heard by liking, sharing, and following. So they were using their access to tamper with evidence and manipulate court cases.
No.
That's what literally letting murderers off, obstructing That's what we're saying, even protecting murderers.
Yeah.
That's what that, and that's just the intro. We haven't even gotten into all the ways that they do that. There's going to be so much to talk about here, and we're going to try really hard to get to the end, because at the end of this video, if we can make it there, we might have to do it in 2 sections, but I hope we can get it all today. If we can get to this, you are going to see how absolutely, what a grip organized crime and the people behind the surveillance have. Even while they're under the top national investigation. My case, the Sally Quillian Yates case, she signed the FISA warrant against Trump, and I'm sitting here screaming, producing videos that I'm not witness against her. It's really hard to believe. But let's hear one more piece from that Operation Tiberius documentary, explaining what corrupt cops on the inside are doing to protect organized crime. Then we'll get to the hitmen with badges who use surveillance to track, isolate, and murder the witnesses.
Detectives began to notice something far more disturbing. Investigations into murders, drug trafficking, and violent assaults were collapsing under strange circumstances. Witnesses were suddenly unwilling to testify. Evidence disappeared. Cases that seemed strong in the beginning ended in acquittals. It raised a dangerous question. Were the police being outsmarted, or were they being undermined from the inside?
Not one case, but one big, extended Freemason family. Investigators that do this as a career. Mafia in the police force. And nobody else is welcome. We don't want you here. We already showed those videos last week where the cops that are in it that got caught, they're so like, well, they didn't want. We tested them if they weren't corrupt or weren't willing to, cooperate. They weren't going to be allowed in.
Yeah.
It's pretty disturbing. On my websites, you will hear eyewitnesses like myself recording them and testifying against them. Today, you're going to see a bunch of eyewitnesses that are murdered, some by police officers. You're going to meet cops that are murderers. You're going to meet hitmen with badges. Last week, we introduced you to Daniel Morgan in Britain, who was murdered after reporting his police boss as a suspect in bank robbery. We also introduced you to William Morgan in the U.S., who was kidnapped and murdered by a team of law enforcement in conspiracy after he started exposing the Freemasons. The Freemasons killed these people who were witnesses against them. I've been covering the murder and shooting of a police officer, and it was that we've been covering the murder and shooting of a police officer and his girlfriend, like we said, right here in Minot by federal agent Briejo. Briejo was an investigator in a massive government fraud. You can watch more on that documentary by going to injusticend.com. Beck News has done a great job of asking why the prosecutor is protecting the murderer and ignoring the living victim, instead of bringing accountability to the corrupt federal investigator. It gets more concerning. Beck News is in a court case fighting the state over the rights to the evidence. The police are trying to take the evidence from the media. The media is who exposes corrupt federal agents.
Supposed to.
Yeah, think about that. This is a court case that will likely set new precedent for how the government can take evidence from the media.
Yeah.
But the Operation Tiberius proves that the government's horribly corrupt. Every sign that we see in this investigation makes everybody ask questions. There's a bunch of other stuff going on around here. The embezzlement case in Minot, the lady that stole this money.
Oh, yeah.
And people are going, why are these people getting off? Why is the judge letting these people off? Why is the prosecutor not prosecuting these cases? Why aren't they investigating these cases? Operation Tiberius goes into explaining all of that.
Yeah, you don't really see them, letting the average Joe off with like a DUI or things like that, do you? No, they throw the book at them.
If you're in a criminal organization, they've got a plan to protect you. When I see a prosecutor that shows up acting like she's prosecuting a private eye, and she's got big, long, fake eyelashes, and her prosecution is a big, long, fake eye drama, fake lashes, I say this is pretty loud. That's what's going on in Beck News. Hats off to yeah, Beg News is covering it. Lori Hines is the reporter that's covering it. I don't know how she's doing on that. I forgot I think that's probably over now. I hope she won. But hats off to Beg News for fighting them in court. Lori, she was
the case over?
No, not the case, but rather she was up for a nomination for in Beck News was also for media. They're free owned. They're owned by they're not owned by the big national play. They're local news.
Yeah,
and that's what it's so important that we have reporters and news agencies that aren't intimidated by criminal action, that aren't intimidated by top government officials, and they're not. And so it's just so great to see them standing up and broadcasting that and speaking out and fighting them in court. The citizens want cameras in the courtrooms, in government offices. If the authorities that have proven themselves corrupt want to watch our every move, something's bad wrong. The injustice is in the courts. We want cameras in the courtrooms. They don't pay us, we pay them.
Yeah. And
our Constitution instructs the citizens to hold the government accountable.
And they're public and we're private. So everything's backwards.
We pay them.
Yeah.
Our Constitution says we control them, but there's criminal organizations that are manipulating with every bit of this, trying to control the elections, control who's in power, and over again it comes back to the Freemasons. You and I have lived it. We have watched it. We have got people here, and when I go back and try to find them, I find these connections to the Freemasons that they're trying to hide. They play the same game, the loud lies. We stand up and confront them. We do that here on this show. But today I'm going to take you straight to the Dixie Mafia and prove to you that it was run and still is today by the Freemasons. The families that protected the Mafia hitmen are still protecting organized crime today. They are behind the cameras still because they murdered the witnesses and were never held accountable. I'm going to prove to you that the person who conspired to classify Trump as a foreign agent is from the deadly connected Freemason families of the Dixie Mafia. I stung them. I went undercover and I caught them. I caught the top government officials behind the cameras who have such great confidence that they can control the evidence however they please. This is the biggest story in the nation because it proves that everything that's happening in the grand conspiracy investigation is still being obstructed by corrupt FBI and DOJ officials at the top. So before we get into Hitman with Badges, I want to take a moment to put up my usual statement that most of our local media just can't get right. I think it's graphic 10, please. So I claim to be the nation's most important unheard eyewitness in the grand conspiracy. How is it possible that every news station is not putting up that statement? Nobody's discredited it. No investigators come forward and put their name on it and said, I don't believe him. I've looked at his evidence, I don't believe him, because they know it's real. That's how much this criminal conspiracy is controlling our government. Internal investigations just prove that corrupt investigators are getting into top positions in order to obstruct investigations. All right, I'm going to go ahead and show you. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, the thing is, for people that find this hard to believe, the evidence is there. Not just in your case. I mean, this whole the Freemasons, the evidence is there.
Oh, and they get on my website and they go, you have absolutely zero evidence. I'm sitting here playing recordings that I took of cops, of lawyers, providing evidence other people put. So when that guy says that, I just take a screenshot. It's all usually a fake account.
Yeah.
But for the ones that are real, if we ever get what we're after, get the Freemasons to where they have to declare, anybody in government position or whatever they investigate, I go to the investigators because that's what I want to do. That's why the FBI won't sit down with me, because I will literally take them and be like, no, sir, you go here, or else I'm going to be testifying against you. You go find out what's going on right here.
Well, and I literally mean all of it. Never mind even your entire story, but just people that just think, no, there's no corruption or there's no voter fraud or election fraud and all that stuff. All the evidence is there. The logic checks out. You know why they're in denial? Fear. It's because it's like, just see no evil. It's like, I'd rather choose to believe that nothing's wrong and I can just go about my merry own way. So
there's people that really think the corruption is not that bad, but I think most of them are just that. They are the conspiring deep state that are trying to push that narrative. That's their agenda, is to try to ridicule the voices that are warning them of the threat. And that's what we're doing. We're warning you. We're going to show you. You're going to see it right here, right now.
It takes courage to look into the eye of the beast. A lot of people just, close their eyes and pretend monsters aren't real, but it's like you and I have seen enough of it.
Oh, yeah. I live in Minot, North Dakota, and the spies couldn't force me out of this area. Chris Wray, the FBI director, the former FBI director, appointed a man named Alvin Winston from Fulton County, Georgia, to be the FBI special agent in charge of my area. He's based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Alvin Winston is not only the special agent in charge, he is the human source validator. So Alvin Winston is who determines if a human source is credible or whether they should be ignored. The FBI won't admit that they're ignoring me. They won't give a name as to any investigator that's going to assume responsibility. Alvin Winston will not acknowledge me. The FBI is structured and has policies that allow them to obstruct investigations easily. Graphic 4, please. This is Alvin Winston with Chris Wray. These are two conspiring criminals who have structured the FBI and controlled key positions to obstruct the nation's top investigation by silencing me. Exactly what Operation Tiberius accidentally revealed. The results of Operation Tiberius are on display right here in the United States. And now, to the hitmen who worked for the Russell, Quillian, Terrell, Yates crime family. You're getting ready to see it. I could start with the hitmen that you recognize from the top national media, but you'll get a better understanding of how this story and how serious this all ties together. These criminals are deeply embedded. And if I back it up to the founding of the Dixie Mafia in Georgia under Sally Yates' crime family, you're going to get a much better feel for how deeply they're embedded. So we just saw that. I mean, there's, the investigation has proven these people are deeply embedded. The name of the investigation was the original one that was never released was Russell. Okay? Guys, you fixing to hear some Russell mobsters. Before the Freemasons were organized as the Dixie Mafia, the same top government families were mobsters. I'm going to take it all the way back to a high priest who guns down a federal marshal while he tries to escape from a theft of deception. This is at the founding of our country. This is right after the War of Independence. This high priest is in a secret society that was sent to the U.S. by none other than the King of England, King George, who Georgia was named after. Remember, the secret society of Freemasons is run at the top by the British royal family, the British aristocracy. Both of those control the Freemasons and have since the establishment of our country. The name Russell should be ringing a bell by now. Some of my previous broadcasts in Season 1 will go into much more detail. You can find those at ferrisbroxton.com. If you're on Rumble, you might be able to find a lot of that in some of the older videos that I made on Rumble. Try it. You might like it. Nothing is more satisfying than understanding the problem and knowing that you have the tools to survive, understand, and solve the problem. So the high priest turned hitman, murderer, was a man named, not hitman, but murderer, was a man named Beverly Allen. Allen is the first protected mobster in the Dixie Mafia family. During this time, there is only one church in North Georgia, and it's called the Allen Church. The Allen Church is the home of a secret society, like I said, set up by the King of England. What you're going to see is that many of the ministers in the Allen Church are Freemasons who protect each other. The Dixie Mafia develops from these Freemason families who meet in a Methodist church. Methodism was established by a man named John Wesley, who was sent from the King of England to Georgia.
Yeah.
He was run out.
Yeah.
This was the second attempt. Came down from a man named George Whitfield. Okay?
Yep.
So the King of England tried again with this Methodist separation of church and state. Okay, so when you hear about the separation of church and state, this is precisely what our forefathers wanted to avoid. The government trying to embed itself secretly in the churches and control the churches. This was the religious persecution that our forefathers fled from.
Because remember also what we've talked about in prior episodes, that the Freemasons swear an absolute oath and allegiance. So it's like, and like you and I said, it's like, as Christians, it's like our allegiance is to God, to Christ, the truth, and theirs is to each other.
And there is a great conversation that goes on in the evidence that I'm getting ready to present. We're not going to go into those conversations today, but that's a huge thing in these documents that I'm going to present. Is some of these guys are going, hey, wait a minute, I'm out here trying to recruit people for the Methodist Church, and I'm finding that if I tell them they got to pick between Freemasonry and being a Methodist minister, they're going to pick Freemasonry. They're more interested in the connection. This is, look, man, I'm a born-again believer. I mean, God says you can serve me or you can serve money. But there's a lot of people that are getting into the church, getting into the nice, polite, respectable social club, and pastors are the same. But the pastors in this church were agents of, not all of them, okay? Some of the pastors in this church, I want to make it really clear right out of the gate. I'm not accusing everybody with one of these last names. I'm not accusing every pastor or member of this church, but there is a crime family, and I'm going to show a lot of them who they are. And that's also with the Freemasons. We showed that before. There were good guys in the Freemasons. We've exposed this in the past shows. I think last week that there's a guy that was in the Freemasons, a good cop, that they threatened to kill him because he turned in a criminal organization run by the Freemasons. The secret society was a criminal organization. That doesn't mean people can't get into it with good intentions.
Well,
okay.
And then again, like every source of power, like I said earlier about police departments have power, so of course there's going to be corruption that tries to take over that power. Churches are the same way. Churches have a lot of community influence and influence on the children, the future. And so a good example of that, I would say, is things that the church isn't supposed to, if anything, be neutral on it. And and that's not even true. They're not neutral on anything. But my point is, you get into like Pride Month, right? You get all these churches hanging the gay pride flag out there, and they're pushing it, and they're pushing on their congregation, they're pushing it on the newcomers, and it's like that. You think where's that coming from? It's corruption.
Yeah,
that's coming into play.
It's not. Yeah, then you got people that read the Bible going, hey, but that's what happened in the Methodist Church.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, the Methodist Church had a bishop that was a 32nd degree Freemason. I mean, you're talking about some real twisted things that do not align whatsoever. But ultimately, the Methodist Church, like the Catholic Church, rejected Freemasonry. What happened was people began to read it and go, hey, like Martin Luther, and said, hey, no, actually, I know how to read. My Bible says this. I'm rejecting that. And they turn to the guy beside him and go, hey, man, why don't you speak up? Sooner or later, there's enough ants that they start talking back to the grasshopper and say, no, actually, you're wrong.
Yeah.
When the secret society came in under the guise of Methodist missionaries, crime was sure to follow. You're going to see the Mafia documentaries in a whole new perspective. When you see the members of Sally Quillian Yates' family, the top secret society, Russell, Terrell, Allen, extended families, you will see who is protecting the mobsters and has been since the beginning. This is a clip from a very popular documentary on the Dixie Mafia. This is Black Barrel Productions, naming the kingpins of the Dixie Mafia. I'm going to show you their lineage and prove that the Dixie Mafia is the same family. And they're still doing it through the Freemasons today. This clip is just an introduction to get your feet wet before you realize what you're standing in. Let's see clip 4, please.
The year after the James Foster saga ended, another saga in Jackson County began. The judge who presided over the case was accused of manipulating grand juries, cutting backroom deals with lawyers and prisoners in exchange for favorable rulings, and defrauding Jackson County of hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars, among other things. In 1961, 3 years after the James Foster case, the judge was disbarred and removed from office. The same investigation that uncovered many of the allegations against the judge also uncovered allegations against the sheriff and the Solicitor General. Sheriff John Brooks and Solicitor General Alfred Quillian allegedly defrauded the county of $8,000, which is the equivalent of more than $85,000 today. Similar to Phoenix City, Alabama, there were allegations of criminal activity throughout the local government in Jackson County. The judge of the district, who was now gone, the Solicitor General, who ran prosecutions in the district, the city attorney in Jefferson, who was known to be soft on bootleggers, a county commissioner, and the sheriff of Jackson County.
The narrator starts with the James Foster case. James Foster was framed after mobster A.D. Allen and a man named Rothschild murdered a grand jury foreman. Rothschild was a cop. It was a cop that murdered the grand jury foreman. The mobster was protected by framing an innocent man. You likely noticed several authorities that were named, including a judge who was disbarred. The sheriff went to prison. He was partners with the mobster, A.D. Allen and Cliff Park, kingpins of the Dixie Mafia. Wait until you see where Allen and Park come from. The narrator says Alfred Quillian was the prosecutor that was accused of defrauding the county of $85,000 in today's money. Alfred Quillian is Sally Quillian Yates' uncle. Let that sink in. Alfred Quillian had to resign, defrauded the county of $85,000, paid it back, went on to become a federal judge. He is the uncle of Sally Quillian Yates, the person that signed the FISA warrant against Trump. Alfred Quillian was exposed and replaced by a man named Floyd Horde. The citizens voted Floyd Horde in to clean up the corruption. Now, Rothschild wasn't the only cop killing good guys. There were other cops murdering witnesses and good cops. We're not going to go down that trail like all these others. On a later date, we will. We have much bigger fish to fry today. If you want to see those cases, watch the Infamous America podcast, Dixie Mafia, Georgia. That comes out of episode 3. That's put together by Black Barrel Productions. It's a really classy production. All right. You want to know what's better than mafia cops murdering other cops? We have a judge in Barrow County pulling the trigger in broad daylight.
Oh.
Murdering a man who is no threat. That judge is convicted by a jury and walks after the Judge David Moats of Barrow County declares himself the 13th juror. I busted Chief Superior Court Judge David Moats in my sting. My mother-in-law's house backed up to his house. He's a kingpin mobster. But he saved another judge, declared himself the 13th juror, and then retired from the bench. I also busted the new Chief Superior Judge, Nick Prim. Both of these are current mafia judges who are caught in my case. We may not be able to get into all that today. I'm more interested in showing you the current threat that we're facing by exposing the biggest mafia family connections that are still in authority today.
Now, when you say you busted them, you mean exposed them, right? But they didn't actually get in trouble, did they?
They're protected. That's just it. There's evidence. I've got the court case. I don't have it to wave around today. But I've got the court case showing that Judge David Moats was over this. Yeah. The proximity of his house, my mother-in-law's house backing up to his. All it takes is an FBI agent sitting down with me for about an hour before they can go and say, hey, let's go before a judge get a warrant, get this man prosecuted. But he's protected. Yeah. Sally Yates was running it. She was the U.S. attorney over the whole thing. It's corruption from the top down. That's why when we look at this, when we say Operation Russell, well, Russell was the top of the law enforcement, top of the secret society. In this case, it's Sally Quillian Yates, and she's conspired to overthrow our country. The point is, when do we say, no, we want accountability, we want our country taken back, we want to have the kind of government that we believe we're supposed to have in the Constitution? That's why Josiah Royce right here is so big on the Constitution, because he realizes that if we follow the Constitution that these things need to be addressed, and it'll straighten out the problems, many of the problems in our government.
It would have, if obedience to the Constitution would have prevented most of the problems that we have in government today.
We wouldn't have this problem. Freemasons would not be. They would have to. You want to be in government? You took an oath of office. Yeah. They would be investigated and exposed. They've been exposed a few times throughout history. There have been 3 anti-Masonic parties.
Well, and just so people know, like, this is going in a deep dive of stuff from before I even knew you. But it's like the way that the corruption works, the way they get a handle on them. People might think like, well, I don't think they that many people really have a heart for corruption, this, that, and the other. Here's the thing. I've seen documented cases of like police that come out, against the other ones. And it's such a dangerous thing to do because not only they kill you, it's even if you're not part of the corruption in that sense. I've seen witness testimonies of cops that were warned by the other cops and everything, like before they even threatened to come out against us. It's like, look, you know about this, you know about this whole operation. We know where your kids go to school. Right. We know where your wife works. We know
they start dropping hints. That's
yeah,
right.
And so it's like
I haven't even. There's members of my family that I'm like, I can't even contact them because I don't want that person to be harassed. That person's not strong enough or secure enough, and I don't want that person to be harassed. And that way, if they try to harass that person, they know I will never know. So there's literally people that I have tried to shield by cutting the relationship because if they hurt that person, it brings no satisfaction to them if I don't know about it.
Right.
I mean, yeah, we're talking about massive organized crime. Y'all, this is serious, serious stuff. So despite Alfred Quilliam being exposed, okay, he goes on to become a federal judge in Fulton County, Georgia, because he's a Yarab Freemason in the club with Richard Brevard Russell and other criminals. I said Richard Brevard Russell and other criminals who conspire to run your government. The Russell family is a horribly corrupt secret society family. Again, not every single person. But I personally recorded John Russell, the House representative, telling me how authorities were running rackets. While I'm stinging John Russell and recording him, he takes a phone call. And he gives instructions to someone who's involved in one of those criminal enterprises. You can watch that also on season 1. We have the recordings of Rob Russell from the same family, the same connected mafia family, instructing police to take care of the family. He's telling the government officials and cops to use the speed trap to prey on the citizens, but not the people in the family. Now you can see really quick the relevance to flock cameras being under the control of these people. The mafia that I'm exposing is in control of the flock camera system. Now that's nothing compared to about what you're about to see. We are here today to see hitmen with badges who are hunting down and murdering witnesses with the full protection of the police force. This looks official. The DA that replaced Alfred Quilliam was blown up at his house.
Blown up?
Blown up. They put dynamite. Dixie Mafia members, hired by one of the kingpins that we named, Clifford Park, AC Park, hired 3 men to go and put dynamite under his hood, wire it to his ignition, and it killed him. It's in this book right here, Conspiracy of Silence. So when you want to know why the media isn't covering this, it's because the media, like you said, they don't want the kids. Mike Buffington, when I went, I couldn't get him to cover it. He started investigating Sally Yates. A bunch of people saying, hey, we were attacked in this bizarre fashion. We were drugged, unrelated people, and he started to cover it. FBI came in and shut him down. Sally Yates was over it. I went to his office. He had a young teenage boy with him when I went up to him. I sat there and I thought about that. And I had no idea about any of this back then.
Yeah.
That's the problem. The problem is we're letting organized crime run our country, and they want more and more power and ability to do it with this mass surveillance. Ultimately, the mobsters rolled over on Clifford Park, the 3 men that blew him up. So they put the dynamite, conspired and cooperated with putting the dynamite under his hood at his house. His family saw this. The kingpin who orchestrated the hit was Clifford Park. The 3 who ratted on Clifford Park died horrible deaths. 2 were burned in cars. The local editor wrote about it in that book right here, A Conspiracy of Silence. Just like the vows one takes when they join the Freemasons. If you rat, you die. The author of the book, Mike Buffington, is not trying very hard to expose the Quillian Russell family, and it's easy to see why. He has seen plenty of murders from the Dixie Mafia. In fact, I think it's rather weak of him, but he has Jimmy Terrell, the mafia that we're going to expose today. A kingpin Dixie Mafia protector, 50 years in the police force, undeniably protecting the Dixie Mafia. He's a commentator on Mike Buffington's media site. That's disgusting.
Now, just to be clear, back up, 50 years on the police force.
50 years in Winder. Now he's over the police force. So first he came in as the chief investigator.
Yep.
When the Dixie Mafia hitman was caught and in jail, and there was massive, the president and the attorney general, Kennedy's, sent like 200 ATF and special agents down to North Georgia to try to figure out what was going on with the Dixie Mafia. At that point, Jimmy Terrell comes in and takes a job as the chief investigator in Winder, the home of the Dixie Mafia, where Sally Yates' parents live. And you're going to hear, if you watch any of these videos, you're going to hear over and over again all the witnesses say, everybody knew who was corrupt. Everybody knew who was behind this. Everybody knew that Billy Sunday Burt's mob was protected and that they were the ones killing everybody. Everybody knew the moonshine operation was run by these criminals. You're going to hear, you hold on to your hats. You're going to see what you're fixing to hear. And if you get into these stories, but this is real. This is still going on today. Like I said, 50 years. First, the chief investigator for Barrow County. Sally Yates told me that he was a mobster, that he would help me. Now he's still the mayor. He was the city manager, chief of police, but he's been over the police force, controlling the city employees for 50 years. And he's gotten recalled. Voted no confidence. So people are complaining about, hey, this guy's telling us what to do. We don't like what he's telling us.
Yeah.
But he's organized crime running your government. Behind the cameras. He's controlling the people behind the cameras. And if they don't like it, he can get rid of them. He can get them that psychological evaluation and destroy their lives.
Nobody should even be in government that long.
This is what happens when organized crime runs your government. This man's seen plenty of murders from the Dixie Mafia. I'm going to let the narrator name the kingpins of the Dixie Mafia real nice and clear. Because they, as you're getting ready to see, they are the family members of Jimmy Terrell. The man that's protecting the Mafia is also family with the Mafia. Clip 5.
Crime was dramatically escalating in Jackson County, Georgia, and all over the state. Bootleggers, car thieves, and illegal gambling operators were running rampant. Cliff Park, who was arguably the bootlegging king of the region, would take center stage in the 1960s. But in the second half of the 1950s, it was car thief A.D. Allen who brought all the major players together in one interwoven web of crime and punishment.
All right. So you see that Andrew Clifford Park and A.D. Allen are kingpins in the Dixie Mafia. So we're going to start in alphabetical order. We're going to start with A.D. Allen. But first, I just made a decision. We're going to cut this broadcast into 2 pieces.
Okay.
So we're going to stop. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and we're going to finish this up. These 2 pieces are going to go together. When this is wrapped up, you're going to see that the man, Jimmy Terrell, is really completely protecting the Dixie Mafia and has. And all the things that Sally Yates told me about him and all the things that I've seen and the corruption that I've seen. But he's just one. There's, like I said, a whole group of them in this area. And it stems from the exact same heinous organized crime. These people behind your cameras when we come back.